Win big in 2023 with Team Sync from RotoBaller. I'm going to make this a short intro for the RotoBaller read because we only got a little bit of time left in 2023. Use my promo code Knuckler, KNUCKLER, to get the premium discount on that RotoBaller premium subscription. Get Team Sync for all your fantasy sports needs. It's a great gift for the RotoBaller in your life. This podcast is also brought to you by Parlay Play Fantasy Sports. Use my referral link and my referral code RotoBrady to get that sweet, sweet deposit bonus. Get in those Parlay Play player prop contests. There's free contests, paid contests. That's a great platform. And what is up, everybody? This is Brady Grove bringing you another special interlude episode of RotoBaller's official MMA podcast. Tap that.
I like it.
With me today, he is a 7-2 professional fighter, only 24 years old, fighting with sick jitsu, hailing from Spokane, Washington, currently ranked as the number 52 bantamweight in the world, according to Tapology.com. And on any given night, I would put a lot of money on the fact that that guy is better than that ranking, according to Tapology. Give it up for Brady Hiestand. Brady, how is it going? Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, dude. That intro was sick. That's next level.
I love queuing up those clips on the regional scene of different people being announced as winners. And dude, it must seem to you like both yesterday and forever ago that you were on The Ultimate Fighter.
I know, yeah. It's crazy to think like 2 years ago, I was getting ready to fight Ricky, or even more than 2 years ago, I was getting ready to fight Ricky, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, it's flown by really fast. I still feel like I was just coming out of the house, but you know.
And that's crazy too, because then you were 22 years old. And so it must have been an absolute whirlwind. And so let's start kind of with tough, because I think you really capitalized on your time in the house. I think that you ended up, getting a fan base out of the show, which I think is a big purpose behind, being on that platform. And so, now that there's been a little bit of time to digest what that experience was kind of like for you, what do you really think that the biggest things that you gained out of that was, other than, making your way into the UFC at such a young age?
Yeah, well, I think you said the two main things. Like I got a fan base. Obviously, it's nothing like it's not the highest, the biggest fan base, but I got some, a lot of loyal fans, a lot of cool people that love my story, and I still talk to every day and support me, which is amazing. And like with that, I think, without it, I wouldn't have got into the UFC as early as I did, because I was young. I had a really small record. And I just don't think I would have got an opportunity until later down the line. But, I got to prove my skills and prove how tough I was. And then it got me that contract. So now put me in a good position with my career and with the UFC.
And, leading up to your time on The Ultimate Fighter, you had been in some really reputable organizations, KOTC, Rise FC, and, your only loss before The Ultimate Fighter was to another guy who's made it at a really high level, Chan Anhelinger. And, I think that especially with your professional record too, coming into The Ultimate Fighter, it was like you look at the opponent's records, and it was really tough to kind of gauge where you were at based on that. And then to get that win over Josh Reddinghouse on The Ultimate Fighter really established you as a dude that was ready for this level at that age.
100%. Like, I think I was, like a big part of it was that I had fought for these big promotions like before I turned pro, and then my pro record, it was super small. And like you said, the guy I lost to Shannon Helger was tough, but he was my toughest fight. And so I feel like I got ridden off a lot while I was in the house just for being so young, small record. But, Josh was actually from my hometown. So I had known him since I was young, since I was 16. And so beating him was huge because it was kind of like a passing of the torch. He was the man at 135 in Spokane, and Spokane's a fight town. So the fact that we got to duke it out on the Ultimate Fighter was pretty cool. It would have been cooler. I would have loved it if it was in the finale, because I know if we didn't fight that early, he would have made it to the finale as well. But it is what it is.
And that must have been awesome for the Washington regional scene for that fight to go down like that. And it must have been weird too, to not only that, because we see this in The Ultimate Fighter, we saw this with like the most recent season for sure, you get to know the people in the house so much that there's a level of familiarity that makes fights weird. And it has to add, an extra element of, uncertainty and, just a weirder element when you also are familiar with someone from such a young age.
For sure. Yeah, like I have a picture of me, Josh, and like a bunch of other guys from Spokane training, and I was like 16 years old. And so it's like I've known him forever. Like, we weren't from the same gym, but we definitely knew each other. And so the fact that we even were roommates in the house, because we were like, oh, two guys from Spokane, even though we were on the opposite team, we're like, you want to bunk together? So we were the two guys in the same room from the same town, and then we ended up fighting in the first round, which is pretty crazy.
Well, it's nice when you're in the house when you have a roommate that you can trust to not like piss on your pillowcase, Chris Lieben style. That's kind of
Dude, that would have been terrible. Luckily, yeah, we had some cool guys in the house. I don't think anyone would have done that, but they would have got kicked in the head or something.
It's funny too because like when you look back at the early seasons of The Ultimate Fighter, and it started when reality TV was like in its like all the reality shows you think about, like they would never, if this was a brand new concept, they would never come up with the concept of sticking everybody in the same house.
No, yeah, because they're too much chaos, which is like good TV. It makes it fun, but even back then, I feel like the older Ultimate Fighters were just unhinged. Those guys were wild, just because the sport was so like young too. The reality TV show was so young, the UFC was so young, and it's so like the people that were on the show were just crazy.
And going back to your fight with Anheliger, that was a fight that you took against a Canadian in Canada, for a belt in that organization. And so, that is a different kind of beast to be taken on at such a young age.
Yeah, with that fight, it was a big risk. I took the opportunity. I took it on short notice. I took it on 3 weeks. I cut the most weight I've ever cut in my life. I was 19 years old, fighting a 34-year-old on an 8-fight win streak. But I knew if I beat that guy, which I believed I could, and I still believed me back then could have beat him because I was beating him in that fight. I knew I was going to get looked at by the UFC and probably get a shot right after that. But, it's just how the cookie crumbles. Like in that fight, I almost subbed him like 3 times. Good on him for getting out. And I feel like it was an early stoppage. I came out, shot a bad takedown. He clipped me. And I was actually getting up when the ref stopped it. So, like you said, it was Canadian and Canadian soil, so it's hard to go against the refs up there.
That's always tough. And so you fought in Washington, in Idaho, and in Canada. And
one time in Vegas too.
Yes. And so what's your take right now on like where the Washington and the Pacific Northwest regional MMA scene is at? Because obviously it seems like there's prospects from all over the country now, when it seems like, before there were maybe a few different areas that were key pipelines. And now it seems like the Pacific Northwest has experienced a lot of growth.
For sure. Yeah. There's even guys and girls coming out of my gym that I know are going to be at that level soon. Like people like Bryce Wyatt, Ashton Charlton, Melissa Maya, these guys that like have great records, are savage in the gym. And I come down here in Vegas, like I'm in Vegas right now training with like top level UFC guys, and I know those guys can give them their money. So there's definitely guys coming up through Spokane specifically, but yeah, like you said, there's people all around. I feel like MMA is becoming such a popular sport now. There's people coming around to everywhere.
And, to that point with the people that you're training with and the different, teams that you've trained with in the past, can you speak a little bit to like the value of having, those veteran UFC training partners? Because, Michael Chiesa, I believe, visited you when you were in the Ultimate Fighter house and worked with guys a little bit. That's got to be such a huge, because I mean, Michael Chiesa is a world-class professional, well-rounded in the way he carries himself and the way that he fights. So it's got to be a huge thing for a young fighter like yourself coming up to have those kind of influences in your life.
For sure. Yeah, like you said, he came and visited me on the Ultimate Fighter, but like you said, he's like a world-class fighter. He was top 5 in the world. He's still top 15. He's been to the top. He won the Ultimate Fighter. To have that guy from my hometown and to support, my career and all of us coming up from the gym's career is huge. He's a big influence. I still reach out to him and ask him questions. He still yells at me, calls me a fat ass if I'm not cutting enough weight fast enough. He's on me like an older brother almost. So it's good to have that. Him Juliana Pena a little bit less because she lives in Chicago, but just having those influences, around me I know made me a better fighter and kind of give me like some confidence, especially like navigating this crazy sport.
Well, you know what? It gives you an example of, what to look at for, people who carry themselves well and succeed at that level. And then it has to give you the confidence of like, wow, these people believe in me. There must be, some real validity to what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis.
For sure. And I think that's the biggest thing with the sport. Is like you need to have that confidence. You need to have that belief. And I believe I have the utmost belief in myself, whether anyone does or not. But having those guys back me, adds to that. It makes it another level.
And kind of to those points as well, you're 24 years old. You've been, now at this level for a couple of years now. You were young when you started making your way up to the UFC. You're still, below the average age by a good amount in the UFC. And we see people have a lot of mixed results when they end up in the UFC at that young age. We see people who absolutely carry the momentum and go with the flow, and we see people who probably got that opportunity maybe a little sooner than they should have. So, what are some things that you kind of look out for in yourself to make sure that, like, as you age, you're doing all the things that you need to make sure that you're progressing at the right pace, but to make sure that also maybe you don't take some of those steps that you if you're like, how to put it, when people are sometimes maybe too eager, or they want to hop in maybe earlier than they should have, those kinds of things.
What is the average age of a UFC fighter?
I don't, if I had to guess, I would say
Like 28.
like 27, 28.
Yeah, that would make sense. But back to your other question, I was just curious about that. But yeah, circling back to your other question, I think the biggest thing is just like constant growth. Always like people grow from uncomfortable situations. So I'm just trying to make sure that I stay uncomfortable in the right areas as much as possible. I want to, test myself in the gym as much as possible because, if I can test myself and fail and then fix the problems in the gym, I'm going to be way more successful in my fights. And I think that shows because if you look at my fights on Tough compared to my first fight in the UFC and then even compared to my last fight, we've had hiccups in each fight, but I feel like my skills have got, way better as each fight has progressed. My striking's got better. I feel like my grappling's always been on point, but that's even got better. And I think my fight IQ is stronger. My cardio's better. I'm stronger. I think just constantly making those improvements. I can't control everything. Like I can't control what the other guy's going to do. I can't control everything, but I control what I can do. And I can control how I get better. And if I just push that pace, out of camp, in camp, all around, just making sure I'm getting better at all times.
And so now to hop into your time in the UFC, because I rewatched all your UFC fights last night. The Ricky fight, I could probably watch it 100 times and I might score it, 100 different ways.
Yeah,
It's a really close fight with a lot of different scoring criteria. The way the striking and the grappling shook out. It was a really exciting fight too. And then you had the year over a year, where you were recovering from that knee injury. And so,
yes, yeah. Oh yeah. So I like throughout the whole season of the Ultimate Fighter, actually, at the beginning before I fought Josh, I had torn my ACL, and so I had all three of my fights with no ACL, and so I didn't realize what it was, and my knee would keep slipping, and I wasn't sure because I'd never had an injury like that. But after the Ricky fight, we got an MRI, and I had like a completely torn ACL, completely torn meniscus, partially torn MCL, and so just like spending that whole year just recovering from that was pretty hell.
And so what are the things that you do besides recover? When you have an injury like that puts you out for over a year, what do you do besides recover to make sure that you're as ready as possible to get back into it when you are ready?
Like I said, I'm lucky with the team I have. So, I'm like fully invested in the sport, all the way through. So even when I was like crutching around, not able to put weight on my leg, I would go into the gym. I'd help our guys hold mitts, all that stuff. I would even go and corner them. I went and cornered our girl Melissa Maya down in Florida. Didn't know how I was going to get in the cage after she won, but I figured it out. But yeah, flew down, did all that stuff. And then just watching tape and just making sure I'm on it. It's hard when you're like a competitor like me and you're like forced to sit out for so long. Like you want to get in there and you want to make progress. Like everything comes to a halt when you're like out like that. So yeah, just kind of trying to keep myself busy and helping out our guys.
And then in the time since the oh boy. We lost Brady for a second.
For sure, for sure.
And Brady's back. And so Brady, since you came back after the Ricky fight and after you recovered from your knee injury, you have looked phenomenal, dude. You're on a 2-fight winning streak. Started off with Fernie Garcia, a fight in which, frankly, you broke him on the ground. There's no other way for me to put it. You really made his corner was calling for everything. We need 100 from you in this last round, and he had no answers for you on the ground.
Yeah, like I think that showed the Ultimate Fighter, but it also showed my progression. Like, even though I feel like my grappling is some of the best in the division, it's constantly getting better, and I'm getting stronger and more athletic. And I just love melting people. So I know that's my superpower. Everyone's blessed in this sport with a certain gift. There's some guys that can, head kick you and you just go to sleep. There's some guys that, can just punch really fast, or, some guys that are really strong. I feel like I got that cardio. I got that fifth gear that can just melt people. And so I'm going to utilize it while I'm in this game.
You've showed that on countless occasions. You actually have kind of like a bantamweight Clay Guida vibe, like in a lot of ways.
Oh,
and like you've got like some wild card striking too, that's constantly developing now as you move along. I remember, I think it was against Fernie that you landed those 2 straight head kicks. It was either against Fernie or Ricky, where you landed those 2 head kicks in a row with the left leg. It was like, head kick again.
Yeah.
Speaking of melting people, the last fight, April of this year, Dana Batgerel. That was a fight where you faced some real adversity, and you ended up getting the TKO in the third.
Yeah.
Take me through that fight and how you were feeling going into round 3, because that was probably the highest quality win of your career so far. Really, either him or Josh Reddinghouse still, but my God, the Dana Batgerel fight really put you on the map.
I think so too. Like, not only the fact that it was like I met adversity, but the fact that I got that finish at the end. I think that really like solidified it for me, because you can win a fight by decision, but it's so much better when you go out there and you like finish the guy. The ref has to pull you off. But going into that fight, so first round, I knew he was a first round fighter. Dude, the guy had 3 first round knockouts in the UFC, so I knew he was dangerous, super dangerous, heavy hands, a good left hook. And so with that, I knew I had to, stay a little bit safer in that first round. And so I was more circling, trying to catch him. I even got him I dropped him at the end of the first, and then he got back up. But going into that second, I'm like, okay, I'm out of that first round. And mentally, I don't think I was on. And so we came out, and he just instantly got me with that left hook and dropped my ass. And I'm like, fuck, God damn it, not again. And then so we turned into a scramble war. I was a little bit rocked. And so the grappling, I think, was a little forced, like I was using a lot of energy. And then I ended up falling off the top, and I'm like, okay, let me just take a breath, and then we'll get back to action. And then he fucking elbowed me and split me open. And I'm like, oh, I can't sit here. So we got back up and we started exchanging. But I was actually pretty fatigued going into that third round. But luckily, I have this amazing strength and conditioning coach, Dylan Lemery, and a great team where we make sure that we're ready for that third round. Like I'm ready. I'm in Shark Tank mode. I'm going to my SNC, pushing the limits every day. And so that 1 minute is all I needed to recover. And I knew he was going to be more gassed than me. And I saw it looking across the cage. And so I saw he's such a muscle bound, strong dude, which I am too. But I feel like my training has like helped me get past that. And I saw him just moving different. And so I don't know if you saw in the third round, but I started picking it up, and I was piecing him up with, some overhand rights, even some overhand lefts. And I was like, okay, last 2 minutes, I'm going to take him down. Did just that. And then I was going to go for a submission, but shout out to my coach, Rick Little, because in between rounds, he's like, you fell off the top because you went for the choke. He's like, you're not going to choke this dude. If you get on top, just beat him up on top. And so I got to the position. I even thought about going for the choke again, but then I let go of it, and then I ended up getting the TKO, luckily. So it was awesome.
And dude, a scramble war is the last thing that anybody should be getting into with you in the third round, because your scrambling is some of the most fun stuff to watch in all the bantamweight division. And it's clear that you have strength that people are not expecting when they fight you, but just from the way that you land your takedowns, it's very clear that like when people do get those knockdowns, like kind of did happen a few times, like in your first few UFC, at least in the Ricky fight, and then against Dana, it's like you're able to use your grappling and your wrestling instinctively to be able to take that breath and use your cardio to your advantage.
For sure. It comes from being the younger brother. I got beat up. And when you get beat up, you grab onto a leg and try to fucking take him down. But no, for real, like I feel like it has to do with, my training. And I feel like I'm a big bantamweight, but my frame, I feel like I'm just probably the biggest, strongest bantamweight in the division now. The ultimate's gone.
Damn. I swear, like I could watch a highlight reel of your scrambles like over and over again. Like those are so fun to watch, and it's the reason that like that fight that you were supposed to be in August 12th against Damon Blackshear would have been an absolute wild, crazy scramble barn burner. I'm sure of it.
Sure.
And so, talk a little bit about why that fight didn't end up happening August 12th and kind of how the recovery process has been for you since then.
Yeah, so that was a big bummer. I really wanted that fight. I was actually looking forward to the fight as much as anyone else, if not more. Especially because I wanted someone that, wouldn't shy away from just grappling. I like to strike and I like to grapple, but, to have someone that's ready to mix it up with me is going to be fun. But unfortunately, I was training down here in Vegas and I ended up getting staph on my thigh. And I was on antibiotics. It was going good. We flew out to Mike's fight in Salt Lake City. I was training out there, but the problem was the antibiotics weren't working and the staph was growing and it almost turned to MRSA even. And so I was like, my leg, I can show you a picture of it, but my leg looked disgusting. It was probably like that big and it just got even bigger and was just swollen and it was leaking. And so I ended up, taking a few days off. The antibiotics were killing me. My weight cut was going horrible. And so I was talking to the doctors at the UFC PI and they're asking me my symptoms. They're asking me what my weight was because I was like 20 pounds away when I'm usually like 13 pounds. And I'm like, I'm literally eating nothing. And so for some reason, I'm not losing weight. They're like, it's the antibiotics. It's fucking with your system. And so we got to a week out and I hadn't trained for a week and a half and the MRSA was getting better. They're like, you need to chill. You need to go to the doctor. We're going to pull the fight because we can't legally let you go in there. And maybe you fucking go septic when you try to cut the 20 pounds and then we're liable. So I was like, okay, fuck. Okay. And then they canceled the fight. But since then, I recovered in a few weeks and, maybe a month. And then I'm just back to training, waiting for my next call.
And, at least it's something that is not going to have, cause a year layoff, and that the staff stuff just happens, and at least you're not one of these fighters that ended up, keeping it quiet and fighting anyway and putting other people at risk, with it. It's just like crazy because like I remember when the Damon Blackshear fight was announced and I was like, that is perfect. It's perfect for it's made to be a fun fight. And so I really hope that they end up making that one again.
Yeah, I'm down. Hit up Sean Shelby, let Dana know. I'm down to do that fight. That would be a fun one. Like you said, I think it would be some crazy scramble wars.
And so Brady, how do you think you're going to be a different fighter the next time that you're in there?
Dude, like I said, I'm improving everywhere, strength, speed. I've worked a lot on my explosion. Being a grinder fighter, you sometimes lose that. So that's the big thing we've been working on with my S&C. And so I think for this next fight, you're going to see a lot more explosive striking. And then, my grappling is my grappling. I think it showcases it for itself every time. It's going to be minor improvements everywhere. But I think the biggest thing is going to be how explosive and how powerful my striking is going to be in these next few fights.
Folks, he's 24 years old. He's got nowhere to go, but there's just upward trajectory, a lot of time to get better, and a lot of exciting stuff in the future. He's one of the most exciting fighters in the UFC's bantamweight division. Follow him on Twitter, Brady Hiestand 1. Brady, thanks so much for being here tonight. I'm really glad that we were able to make this happen. if there's anything else you want to say, anybody you want to shout out, the floor is yours.
No, I just want to say thank you to my team, all the people around me, all my fans supporting me, and appreciate you for having me come on the show.
Dude, this has been a fun conversation. He's also got the best first name in the entire game. Folks,
Go!
Thank you so much for tuning into this very special interlude episode of RotoBowler's official MMA podcast. Tab that. We're finishing out 2023 strong, getting back to winning ways. Follow me on Twitter at RotoBrady. That's where I make picks for all major MMA promotions and big boxing events. Follow the podcast on Facebook, Spotify, and YouTube at Tap That MMA Podcast. Thanks for listening, folks. Have a great night. Peace.